a light ray going through the prism of angle 60 degree. Angle of prism is given to be 60 degree. Is found to deviate by 30 degree. That means if suppose we have this one as a light, incident light, then its original line of motion is this. And finally, when it gets out of the prism, it goes this way. So overall deviation suffered by this light ray is represented by this particular angle. So this is the angle of deviation. Here it is said that a light ray going through the prism of angle 60 degree is found to deviate by 30 degree. What can you say about refractive index of material of the prism? This is very limited information, but we have to say something about the refractive index of the material of this particular prism. As we know that there is one entity known as the minimum deviation in case of prism. What is that, and how is that minimum deviation related to the refractive index? We have this formula, mu equal to sine of A plus delta minimum divided by 2 divided by sine A divided by 2. Here A is what? A is angle of prism, which is 60 degree in this case, and delta M here is minimum angle of deviation. Means for any prism, delta M is the minimum possible angle of deviation. Okay, so mu is related to the minimum angle of deviation like this. If we substitute the value of A as 60, then what we have is mu is equal to sine of 30 plus delta minimum divided by 2 upon sine 30 degree. So we can simplify this further. Sine of 30 plus delta minimum divided by 2 is equal to mu divided by 2, because sine 30 is half. So you can see this. So finally what we have is 30 plus delta minimum divided by 2 is equal to sine inverse mu upon 2, which means delta minimum is equal to 2 times sine inverse mu by 2 minus 30 degree. So in terms of mu for this prism of angle of 60 degree, delta minimum is this. As it is said that for a particular ray, angle of deviation is 30 degree. In this particular prism, angular deviation for one particular ray is 30 degree. That means whatever the delta minimum is, it must be what? Less than 30 degree, because this 30 degree can be either the minimum angular deviation or any other deviation which has to be greater than the minimum. So here 30 degree is not set to be as the minimum deviation. So what we can say right now is that whatever the delta minimum is, it should be less than or at the most equal to 30 degree, because we know that for one ray deviation, the value of deviation is 30 degree. So now we can substitute this into this inequality. So what we get, 2 times sine inverse mu by 2 minus 30 degree is less than or equal to 30 degree. So finally sine inverse mu by 2 minus 30 degree less than or equal to 15, which further means sine inverse mu by 2 is less than or equal to 45 degree, which means mu by 2 is less than or equal to sine 45, which is 1 upon under root 2. So finally what we have is mu less than or equal to under root 2. So this is something what we can say about the minimum, about the refractive index of the material of this prism. So option A will be the correct option to this question.